A New Jersey community is mourning the death of a Trenton mother and her 8th grade daughter. They were found dead in their home over the weekend. Both had been shot. The city's mayor called it a horrific act of violence.
When first responders arrived at the West State Street home in Trenton that April morning, they walked into a scene of haunting contradiction. Colorful birthday balloons still drifted against the ceiling, their ribbons swaying gently in the breeze from the open front door. A cake knife lay on the kitchen counter, frosting still clinging to its edge. Signs of celebration everywhere. But on the staircase leading to the 3rd floor, 40-year-old Malika Whiting lay motionless, blood pooling beneath her body. The vibrant woman known for her ever-changing hair colors and constant smile was silent forever. And upstairs, in her bedroom adorned with newly hung posters and birthday gifts still in their bags, 13-year-old Jairah Biggs was found. A child who would never reach high school, never wear the college t-shirt her mentor had promised her. Just 4 days earlier, Malika had posted photos of Jairah's birthday party. "Celebrating my baby girl turning 13. The comments section overflowed with heart emojis and congratulations. What no one saw was who else was watching those posts, who was seething with resentment from outside the celebration. What transforms a family's happiest moments into their last? What happens in a man's mind when he decides that if he can't be part of the joy, he'll replace it with unimaginable horror?" On March 28th, Bahan Lynch posted on his Facebook page, "I try every day and it's still not good enough." 2 weeks later, he would arrive at his ex-girlfriend's home with a loaded gun and methodically extinguish 2 lives that were thriving without him. There were warning signs. There were patterns. There were moments when intervention might have saved them. Malika's 19-year-old son, Santana, found their bodies. In a video recorded just hours after the murders, his anguish echoes what too many families have experienced. "You just killed her. You took the one person that I know that never gave up and always told me that she would never leave me. But she did leave, not by choice, but because she dared to end a relationship with a man who couldn't accept rejection." By the end of this video, you'll recognize the warning signs that preceded this tragedy. Signs that might save someone you know, someone you love, maybe even yourself. Pay close attention to what happened in the weeks before these murders. The pattern isn't just familiar, it's predictable. And what's most terrifying is that right now, as you watch this, someone else is living through the early stages of the same deadly cycle. And Malika never saw it coming. Those birthday balloons were still floating when her life wasn't anymore. Hello and welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories. To understand the magnitude of what was lost on April 12th, you have to know who Malika Whiting was to everyone around her. At 40 years old, she wasn't just existing, she was thriving. Malika worked at Gabe Academy International School, where she spent her days nurturing young minds. Before that, she was a familiar face at the local Starbucks, remembered not just for her service, but for her presence. Trenton Mayor Reed Gusciora recalled her vividly, even years after she'd moved on from the coffee shop. "She was always cheerful," he said, and colored her hair frequently. It was a small detail that spoke volumes about who Malika was. Someone who embraced change, who found joy in expression, who left an impression. But it was at home where Malika truly shined. Her social media told the story of a mother whose world revolved around her 4 children. Birthday celebrations, school achievements, random Tuesday afternoons, all documented with the same pride and attention to detail. Each post punctuated with heart emojis, each caption radiating love. Her cousin Laquana Hardy's voice breaks as she describes the woman she knew. She was a loving mother. She was funny. She was loving. All she wanted was to have her kids raised properly. When someone is taken violently, we often focus on how they died. But understanding what was stolen requires knowing how they lived. And Malika lived for her children, especially her daughter Jairah, whose life was cut tragically short alongside her mother's. At 13, Jairah Biggs was just beginning to discover who she would become. A 7th grader with promising academics, she had already caught the attention of mentors who saw her potential. Jairah was enrolled in the Gear Up program, designed to prepare students for college, a future she would never realize. Gabrielle Williams mentored Jairah in the program and still struggles to speak of her in the past tense. If you just take a look at her face, William said, her voice softening. "You just see that she was a sweet girl." After a moment, her tone changes, hardening with anger and grief. "I hope that justice gets served because at the end of the day, Jai didn't even get to reach high school. She's not going to get to grow up, and that's unfair." Jairah had just celebrated her 13th birthday, a milestone marking her entrance into teenage years. The balloons from that celebration were still inflated when her life taken. Photos from the party show her beaming, surrounded by family, completely unaware that she had less than a week to live. When news of her death reached her classmates, the school district immediately deployed grief counselors. Children shouldn't have to process the murder of a peer, yet here they were, trying to understand why their friend wouldn't be returning to her desk on Monday. "My heart breaks for the kids," William said. "It breaks for her family, her siblings." The home on West State Street housed a blended family that Malika had carefully cultivated. 19-year-old Santana Maher was her oldest, followed by Jairah at 13 and two younger siblings, an 11-year-old brother and 6-year-old sister. Their daily life revolved around the routines that Malika established: school drop-offs, homework at the kitchen table, family dinners where everyone shared their day. Birthdays were special events, with Malika ensuring each child felt celebrated and seen. Holidays transformed their home into a showcase of seasonal joy. Now overnight, Santana has become the head of what remains of this family. His words, shared on a GoFundMe page created to support his siblings, reveal the crushing weight that has fallen onto his young shoulders. "My heart is beyond broken to lose the woman that gave me life. I know that life will be different without my other half, but it's up to me to continue to care for my younger siblings, my 6-year-old sister and 11-year-old brother." What Santana doesn't say, what perhaps he can't bring himself to articulate, is how this happened. How a man who once pretended to care for this family could destroy it so completely. How Bahin Lynch, rejected by Malika, decided that her children should pay the ultimate price for their mother's decision to seek happiness without him. The warning signs were there, hidden in plain sight. But like so many families living under the shadow of a possessive partner, the Whitings couldn't see how quickly possessiveness could turn deadly. How the same man who brought gifts one day could bring bullets the next. When Bahin Lynch first entered Malika's life, he seemed like the answer to a single mother's prayers. At 45, the forklift operator presented himself as stable, responsible, a man ready to step into a family role that needed filling. Friends recall seeing them together at community events, Lynch's hand protectively on Malika's back, his attention to her children seemingly genuine. He played the role of stepdad of the year, recalls one neighbor who asked not to be identified. Always bringing gifts for the kids, offering to help with school projects, showing up at their events, the perfect package. Social media photos from early in their relationship show Lynch smiling alongside Malika and her children at a local park, at birthday celebrations, at holiday gatherings. To outsiders, he appeared to be integrating seamlessly into the fabric of this ready-made family. But behind closed doors, a different reality was forming, one that Malika kept largely private. Friends now report that Lynch's attentiveness had a darker edge. His texts would come in rapid succession if Malika didn't respond quickly enough. His questions about her whereabouts became more frequent, more insistent. His offers to help with the children began to feel less like support and more like control. "Looking back," says Laquana, "there were signs we all missed. The way he'd sometimes speak over her. How her smile would tighten when he'd make certain comments. How she started checking her phone more anxiously when it buzzed. These subtle shifts, invisible to casual observers, but increasingly apparent to those closest to Malika, marked the beginning of the end." By early 2025, the relationship had begun to fracture visibly. Neighbors reported overhearing arguments. Lynch was seen less frequently at family gatherings. Malika's social media posts no longer featured him, a digital erasure that speaks volumes in our connected age. In March, Malika made the decision that would ultimately cost her life. She ended the relationship with Lynch. She just wanted peace, her cousin explains. She wanted to focus on her kids, on her work, on turning 40. She wanted to celebrate life without walking on eggshells. What Malika couldn't have known was that Lynch was already displaying the classic danger signs of an abuser facing rejection. His social media shifted dramatically, from casual life updates to cryptic messages of resentment and entitlement. On March 28th, just days after the breakup, he posted, "I try every day and it's still not good enough." The words seem innocuous on the surface, the kind of vague emotional statement that populates countless social media feeds. But to experts in domestic violence, such public declarations often serve as warning flares, signaling a dangerous sense of grievance building within. As March turned to April, Lynch's online behavior grew more concerning. While he didn't directly mention Malika, his posts began to alternate between self-pity and thinly veiled anger. "Some people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone," read one post. "Sometimes you have to show people consequences," read another. Meanwhile, Malika's social media told a starkly different story. April brought multiple celebrations for her family, Easter gatherings with the children in new outfits, Jairah's 13th birthday party with friends and family, and plans for Malika's own 40th birthday. Photos showed her smiling wider than she had in months. One image, posted just 5 days before the murders, shows her with freshly colored purple hair, captioned simply, "New decade, new me, 40 and thriving." Lynch saw it all. Digital forensics would later confirm that he visited Malika's profiles multiple times daily, scrolling through evidence of her happiness without him, watching as she rebuilt a life that no longer included him. Dr. Rachel Morrison, expert on domestic violence psychology, explains the deadly dynamic at play. For certain individuals with deep insecurity and control issues, seeing an ex-partner thriving becomes intolerable. It's not just that they've lost the relationship. It's that the other person's visible happiness serves as proof that they weren't essential, that life goes on without them. For someone whose identity is built around dominance and control, this reality can trigger extreme violence. These celebrations, normal family milestones that should have been joyous and unremarkable, became, in Lynch's distorted view, provocations. Each birthday balloon, each smiling photo, each new hair color became evidence of a crime against him, the crime of Malika's independence. Have you ever known someone who became dangerously obsessed with an ex-partner's happiness? Someone who couldn't bear to see another person move on? The signs are often visible in retrospect: the excessive monitoring of social media, the alternating patterns of pleading and resentment, the inability to accept that a relationship has ended. For Malika, these warning signs were building toward an unthinkable conclusion. As she planned her 40th birthday celebration, as she helped Jairah hang new posters in her bedroom, as she embraced this new chapter of freedom and joy, Bayhan Lynch was making plans of his own. Plans that would ensure if he couldn't be part of Malika's celebrations, there would be nothing left to celebrate. April 12th, 2025 began like any other Saturday for the Whiting family. The morning sun filtered through the windows of their West State Street home, just steps away from the New Jersey State House. Investigators would later piece together those final hours through cell phone records, witness statements, and the digital footprints we all leave behind. At 7:43 a.m., Malika posted a photo of breakfast pancakes shaped like bunnies, with the caption, "Weekend treats for my little ones." Her younger children can be seen at the kitchen table, laughing. Jairah, at 13, was sleeping in, a teenage privilege on a Saturday morning. By 8:30 a.m., neighbors reported seeing Malika outside, watering the small collection of potted plants on her front steps. She waved to a passing jogger. She called her mother, a brief 2-minute conversation about plans for Sunday dinner. Inside the home, remnants of recent celebrations remained. Easter decorations not yet put away, birthday balloons still buoyant enough to brush against the ceiling. A happy 13th birthday banner hung in the dining room. There were also newer balloons, purple and silver, perhaps for Malika's upcoming 40th. The house was alive with the ordinary sounds of a Saturday morning. Cartoons playing on the living room TV, the washer humming in the background, Jairah's music drifting down from the 3rd floor as she finally got out of bed around 9:15. This was the life Malika had fought to create: normal, stable, peaceful. A life without Bayhan Lynch. At approximately 9:45 a.m., according to neighbors' statements, Lynch's silver Jeep Grand Cherokee pulled up outside the Whiting home. He didn't call ahead. He didn't text. He simply arrived, unexpected and uninvited. What happens next can only be reconstructed through forensic evidence and the fragmented accounts of those nearby. Lynch entered the home. Whether Malika let him in or he used a key he never returned, we don't know. The younger children were reportedly in the backyard, momentarily out of sight. Eric Anderson, who lives 2 doors down, told investigators, "I heard raised voices. Not clear enough to make out words, but definitely an argument. I thought about going over, but..." His voice trails off, the weight of what-ifs hanging in the air. Dr. Elaine Foster, expert on domestic violence fatalities, explains the critical dynamics of these confrontations. The most dangerous moment in an abusive relationship is often after separation, when the abuser realizes they've truly lost control. These confrontations frequently begin with attempts at reconciliation, then rapidly escalate when those attempts are rejected. The transition from "I want you back" to "if I can't have you, no one will" can happen in minutes. Forensic evidence tells us the confrontation moved to the staircase leading to the 3rd floor. Blood spatter analysis suggests Malika was ascending the stairs, perhaps going to check on Jairah, when the argument turned deadly. Lynch pulled out a handgun. The first shots were fired on that stairway. Malika Whiting, 40 years old, mother of 4, fell where she stood. The medical examiner would later confirm multiple gunshot wounds. But Lynch wasn't finished. Jairah, hearing the gunshots and likely her mother's final cries, had hidden in her 3rd-floor bedroom. The room where she'd just celebrated becoming a teenager. The room with college preparation books stacked on her desk. Evidence of dreams that would never materialize. Lynch ascended the remaining stairs, step by methodical step. He moved with purpose, not passion. This was no longer a crime of opportunity or sudden rage. Each step up that staircase represented a conscious choice to continue what he had started. He found Jairah in her bedroom. Criminal psychologist Dr. Marvin Swanson offers this haunting insight. When a perpetrator doesn't stop at killing their primary target but extends the violence to children, it reveals an extreme form of possession and punishment. It's a twisted logic that says, "You took away what matters to me, so I'll take away what matters to you." Even in death, the victim is being punished through the loss of what they loved most. Investigators believe Jairah's final moments were spent hiding in fear, perhaps trying to call for help, perhaps simply frozen in terror as the man who once brought her birthday presents now brought something unimaginable. Jairah Biggs was pronounced dead at the scene, multiple gunshot wounds to her head and torso. At 10:30 a.m., a 911 call came in reporting 2 bodies at the West State Street address. The caller's identity remains protected, but police response was immediate. First responders arrived to find a scene of stark contrast, a home decorated for celebration that had become the site of execution. The front door was wide open, Officer Ramon Diaz noted in his report. From the doorway, you could see colorful balloons floating against the ceiling of the living room. It was immediately apparent this family had been celebrating something special. Police found Malika's body on the stairway leading to the 3rd floor, just as the dispatcher had been told. Ascending those same stairs, they discovered Jairah in her bedroom. As word spread through the tight-knit neighborhood, residents gathered outside the police line. Many stood in silent shock. Some held each other, weeping. Others stared at the ordinary house with its cheerful potted plants, trying to reconcile the horror inside with the normalcy of its exterior. By noon, news vans had arrived. By 1 p.m., Malika's older son Santana had been notified and rushed home to find his life forever altered. His siblings now his responsibility, his mother and sister gone. And Bahan Lynch? He had disappeared, leaving behind only shell casings, blood, and birthday balloons, still gently swaying in the breeze from the open door. The ripples of violence spread outward from West State Street, touching first those closest to the epicenter. Santana Mar, just 19 years old, arrived at the police barricade to find his world shattered beyond recognition. Officers pulled him aside, away from the growing crowd and media presence. In those moments, Santana became not just an orphan, but the head of what remained of his family. The raw emotion of his loss was captured in a video he recorded shortly after, his voice breaking as he addressed the man who had destroyed his family. "You just killed her. You took the one person that I know that never gave up and always told me that she would never leave me." His words catch in his throat, the reality still settling into his consciousness. Like, I never wish this on my worst enemy. Never wish this on nobody. The footage, later shared across social media, shows a young man grappling with a burden no teenager should bear, identifying the bodies of his mother and sister, comforting his younger siblings who couldn't comprehend the permanence of what had happened, and suddenly becoming responsible for a 6-year-old sister and 11-year-old brother. Within hours, Santana created a GoFundMe page, his grief still raw as he wrote, "My heart is beyond broken to lose the woman that gave me life. I know that life will be different without my other half, but it's up to me to continue to care for my younger siblings." The community response was immediate. Neighbors brought food, offered childcare, and contributed to the fund. Malika's former co-workers at Starbucks organized meal deliveries. Jairah's school began collecting donations for funeral expenses, but nothing could fill the void left by this senseless act of violence. Meanwhile, the investigation was moving with methodical precision. Crime scene technicians worked through the day, documenting evidence, collecting shell casings, and taking blood samples for analysis. The silver Jeep Grand Cherokee parked next to the home became a focus of attention, yielding potential evidence about Lynch's arrival and state of mind. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood, building a timeline through witness statements. Eric Anderson described hearing the argument. Another neighbor reported seeing Lynch's vehicle arrive. A third mentioned unusual activity around the home in days prior, perhaps surveillance, perhaps rehearsal. "We treat every homicide with the utmost seriousness," stated Detective Scott Peterson of the Mercer County Homicide Task Force. "But when children are involved, there's an additional urgency to our work. Every officer feels it." By Saturday evening, investigators had identified Bahan Lynch as their primary suspect. Records show he was located and detained that same day, initially on unrelated charges while the homicide case was built. This common tactic allowed law enforcement to keep him in custody while they assembled the evidence needed for murder charges. Forensic analysts worked through the night, processing the crime scene, analyzing digital evidence from phones and computers, and reconstructing the relationship history between Lynch and his victims. Text messages, social media posts, and witness statements painted a picture of escalating possessiveness leading to deadly violence. One crucial piece of evidence emerged from Malika's phone, a series of increasingly threatening messages from Lynch in the weeks following their breakup. Messages he had apparently deleted from his own device, but which remained in her message history. These digital breadcrumbs would help prosecutors establish premeditation rather than a crime of passion. Beyond the immediate family and the investigation, the broader Trenton community struggled to process this tragedy occurring just steps from the State House, the seat of New Jersey's government, where laws are made and justice is supposed to be served. Mayor W. Reed Gusciora issued a statement that captured the city's collective grief. "It is with profound sorrow and heartbreak that we learned of the senseless and devastating loss of Malika Whiting and her 13-year-old daughter, Jairah Biggs. The news of this horrific act of violence has shaken our community. The family's roots are in the community and throughout the city. No mother and daughter should ever be taken from this world in such a tragic and violent way." The mayor knew Malika personally from her days working at Starbucks. "She was always cheerful and colored her hair frequently," he recalled, humanizing her beyond the crime statistics that would soon include her name. Trenton Public Schools Superintendent James Earle immediately dispatched grief counselors to all city schools, recognizing that Jairah's classmates would need support processing her murder. "This is something people have a hard time processing. Rightfully so," Gusciora added, "particularly when somebody is so young and innocent that they did not deserve this at all." A prayer vigil was organized at Cadwallader Park on West State Street, where community members gathered with candles and photos of Malika and Jairah. Speakers alternated between celebrating the lives lost and calling for an end to domestic violence. Neighbor Eric Anderson, still visibly shaken days after witnessing the police response, summarized the community sentiment. "It's very senseless, you know, very senseless." His simple words captured what made this crime so difficult to process. The absolute lack of necessity, the preventable nature of the violence, the lives extinguished for nothing more than a man's wounded pride. What should communities do to prevent these domestic tragedies before they occur? How many warning signs go unnoticed or unreported? How many lives might be saved if we recognize the danger signs in relationships around us? For Trenton, a city already struggling with various forms of violence, this murder of a mother and child represented something even more troubling. Violence that had entered the most intimate spaces, the places where safety should be guaranteed. As one community activist noted at the vigil, we can put more police on the streets, we can add security cameras, we can fight gang violence, but how do we protect people from those they once trusted? How do we see the danger before it's too late? These questions hung in the air over Trenton, unanswered, as the legal process against Bayhan Lynch was just beginning. While the Whiting family began the impossible task of planning 2 funerals, the wheels of justice turned with deliberate, some would say frustrating, precision. In the hours following the murders, police located and detained Bayhan Lynch, not on murder charges, but on unrelated weapons offenses. This common tactic gave investigators time to build an airtight case while keeping their prime suspect off the streets. To the public, however, it appeared as though the killer might somehow escape the full weight of justice. It's standard procedure, explains former prosecutor James Donovan. In high-profile cases like this, rushing to file murder charges before the evidence is properly processed can backfire. Investigators get one chance to do this right. But for a family devastated by loss, the procedural caution felt like indifference. The frustration boiled over when Malika's daughter took to social media with raw, unfiltered grief that resonated across platforms. "I never been in a million years. I never want nobody feel this pain," she said through tears, her voice breaking. "That was my mom. If anybody know me, this know I left my... Like y'all, I can't even take this." Her emotional testimony continued as she processed her trauma in real time. "You killed the baby. Killed the baby." He walked out smiling. Sick-minded person. The video spread rapidly, garnering hundreds of thousands of views within hours. Comments flooded in demanding justice, tagging law enforcement agencies, and putting public pressure on officials to act swiftly. Behind the scenes, detectives from the Mercer County Homicide Task Force worked methodically, building a case that would withstand scrutiny. They processed the crime scene evidence, analyzed phone records, and collected witness statements. They documented the history of the relationship, establishing the timeline of events leading up to the murders. Detective Scott Peterson, leading the investigation, later acknowledged the challenges of the case. When emotions run high, the pressure to rush is immense. But rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes lead to killers walking free. We needed to be thorough. The forensic evidence was compelling. Ballistics matched a weapon registered to Lynch. DNA evidence placed him at the scene. Cell tower data tracked his movements to and from the home at the time of the murders. Text messages revealed his state of mind in the days leading up to the killings. On Thursday, April 17th, 5 days after the murders, the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office announced formal charges against Bayhan Lynch. 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with weapons charges including possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose, unlawful possession of a weapon, and certain persons not to possess a firearm. The charges reflect the severity of these heinous crimes, Prosecutor Janetta D. Marbury stated in the announcement. "We will be filing a motion to detain the defendant pending trial to ensure the safety of the community." For the Whiting family, the charges brought a measure of relief, though nothing could fill the void left by Malika and Jairah's absence. "Justice isn't bringing them back," Santana Mar said quietly after the charges were announced. "But at least he can't hurt anyone else's mother, anyone else's sister." The road to trial would be long, with months of hearings, motions, and preparations ahead. But with Lynch held without bail at the Mercer County Correction Center, the immediate threat had been contained. As Mayor Gusciora promised in his statement to the community, Trenton will not rest until justice is served, and we will continue to work every day to build a safer future for all our residents. For Malika and Jairah, justice would come too late, but perhaps for another family, another mother considering leaving a controlling relationship, another child caught in the crossfire of domestic violence, the swift response to this tragedy might signal that the system can work, even if it sometimes works too slowly. At noon on Monday, April 21st, the community gathered at Calvary Pentecostal Church on Parkway Avenue in Trenton. The line of mourners stretched around the block, family, friends, co-workers, classmates, and strangers touched by the tragedy. They came to say goodbye to Malika Whiting and her daughter Jairah Biggs, two lives extinguished at the very moment they were most joyfully blooming. Inside, photographs captured Malika's vibrant spirit, her ever-changing hair colors, her wide smile, her arms almost always wrapped around her children. Photos of Jairah showed a young girl on the cusp of becoming herself, awkward, beautiful, full of potential and promise. "It's very unfair. It's hurtful. I'm angry," said Gabrielle Williams, Jairah's mentor from the Gear Up program, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm angry because it's senseless. It's just senseless. A mother and her daughter, especially someone like Jai and Malika, it doesn't make any sense to me." Williams had brought a college t-shirt to place in Jairah's casket, a symbol of the future that had been stolen from her. "She's not going to get to grow up, and that's unfair," she said, the simplicity of her words carrying the weight of all that would never be. As the community mourned, practical concerns loomed for the surviving family members. At just 19, Santana Meher faced the overwhelming task of caring for his younger siblings, an 11-year-old brother and 6-year-old sister who couldn't fully comprehend the permanence of their loss. Community organizations have stepped forward with offers of counseling, childcare assistance, and educational support. But money and services can't erase the trauma these children have experienced. Dr. James Kelly, child psychologist specializing in trauma, explains the long-term implications. What these children have endured creates ripple effects that can last a lifetime. Beyond the immediate grief, they're processing complex trauma that can affect their ability to form healthy relationships, their sense of safety in the world, and their understanding of what love looks like. The surviving children face what experts call generational trauma, patterns of loss and violence that can echo through families unless intervention breaks the cycle. The most important factor in these children's recovery will be stable, consistent support, Dr. Kelly continues. Communities rallying around survivors in the immediate aftermath is vital, but these families need sustained support systems that last years, not weeks. For the Trenton community, supporting the Whiting children has become a commitment rather than a momentary response, a recognition that healing from such profound loss requires more than just initial outpourings of sympathy. The tragedy of Malika and Jairah's deaths contains lessons that could save others, if we're willing to learn them. Domestic violence experts point to several critical warning signs that were present in Malika's relationship with Lynch. Excessive jealousy and possessiveness disguised as devotion, controlling behaviors masked as concern or protection, isolation from friends and family, monitoring of communications and whereabouts, rapid mood swings and unpredictable anger, inability to accept rejection or relationship endings, threats of self-harm if the relationship ends, history of troubled previous relationships. Perhaps most importantly, escalation of controlling behaviors after a breakup and obsessive monitoring of an ex-partner's happiness or new life. The most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is not during it, but when leaving it, explains Trenton domestic violence advocate Sophia Martinez. When creating a safety plan, the period immediately after separation requires the highest level of caution and support. For those in similar situations, experts recommend document concerning behaviors and incidents. Create a safety plan before leaving the relationship. Share your concerns with trusted friends or family. Contact domestic violence resources for guidance specific to your situation. Consider legal protections like restraining orders, but with professional guidance about timing. If possible, relocate temporarily to a location unknown to the abuser. Change routines and be cautious about social media posts that reveal locations or activities. The most important thing to remember is that you don't have to figure this out alone, Martinez emphasizes. There are professionals who understand these dynamics and can help create safety plans specific to your circumstances. Malika's cousin Laquana Hardy offers perhaps the most powerful message from this tragedy. I pray that each and every one of us evaluates the relationships we're in, because this can be any of us. This can be any of us. As our time with this story draws to a close, we return to the image where we began. Those birthday balloons still floating against the ceiling of the Whiting home, silent witnesses to both celebration and tragedy. The balloons represent something profound about domestic violence homicides, their preventable nature. Unlike random acts of violence or natural disasters, These deaths follow recognizable patterns. They leave warning signs. They provide opportunities for intervention. The balloons remain a symbol of all Malika and Jairah should have experienced. More birthdays, more celebrations, more ordinary days filled with the simple joy of being alive and together. Mayor Gushiora's words echo this sentiment. No mother and daughter should ever be taken from this world in such a tragic and violent way. The Trenton community has committed to remembering Malika and Jairah not just as victims, but as vibrant lives worth celebrating. A mother who colored her hair on a whim and always had a smile for customers. A teenager with college dreams and a sweet disposition. Their story matters not just because of how they died, but because of how they lived, and because their deaths might help others live. What will you do differently after hearing this story? Who in your life needs to hear this warning? The signs of dangerous relationships surround us, in our families, among our friends, in our communities. Recognizing them isn't about paranoia, it's about prevention. It's about ensuring that birthday balloons remain symbols of celebration, not memorials. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need this information. Your comment below could help others recognize patterns in their own relationships. And by subscribing to this channel, you help ensure these important stories reach those who most need to hear them. For Malika and Jairah, it's too late. But for someone watching right now, this information could make all the difference.